The format of the webinar is going to be just a discussion with our doctor, discussing the various points. It's more of a Q&A. And then what we're going to do is spend a few minutes going over the background of Corona and then what to do in terms of opening their schools. And once we're done that, we'll have, we have received more than 35 questions from the participants. We'll go over some of the questions and then open up for interaction. So good afternoon, folks. Welcome to the webinar hosted by HealthyKid. I think to open or not to reopen the schools is a catch-22 situation. The academic calendar, the vast syllabus is definitely something that is troubling you guys. But most important, making sure and assuring our parents and the staff that campus is safe is most important. And that is the topic for our webinar today. Let me introduce our eminent guest, Dr. Maheshwari. She is an epidemiologist and a COVID warrior. She has been on the forefront of containing the COVID crisis and actively involved in helping industries and corporates restart. In fact, today morning, she was actually in a few general hospitals trying to make sure the patients are taken care and the quarantines are happening properly. So, as a doctor and as a caring mother, I'm sure she can provide the right perspective for our audience here. Welcome, doctor.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on this webinar. And I hope I'll provide all the relevant answers for all the questions. We have received a number of questions. Hopefully, I will answer all of your questions. If you have any more questions, we can take it later on.
Sure. Let's get started. So first of all, doctor, I think everybody has heard a lot about the COVID, but can you just summarize the COVID pandemic for us?
I think all of you know more about COVID than myself. It's like an infodemic. For us, it's pandemic, and for the general public, it has become like an infodemic. But still, I would like to emphasize the basics of COVID, that where it existed. COVID-19 started in December last year. It's the novel coronavirus, which started in China. And I think it has spread itself in almost all the countries on this planet. And India itself, I think we have about 2 lakh identified positive cases and about close to 5,000 deaths. And I think primary and secondary contacts are not even counted. So many number of primary and secondary contacts. And the reason why we should not panic because of COVID-19 is, it's like any normal viral fever, like a Spanish flu or an Ebola, where it will have most of the signs and symptoms of COVID are usually like a normal flu. Only people who are like elderly or who are on a chemotherapy or a radiotherapy or are affected by cancer or on immunosuppressants, who are on a chronic diseases or on renal failure, people who have compromised immunostatus, people with such background get the severity of COVID. So as you know, all of them are speaking on news that most of the people who are tested positive are asymptomatic. What is the meaning of asymptomatic? All the symptoms which you have read in newspaper like cold, cough are not seen usually in people who are also tested positive. The severity of this COVID-19 is usually seen in patients who have some immunocompromised background.
Oh, so are you saying, doctor, that people are panicking without a reason?
Please take me right. I am just saying that there is no need to panic, but we should always have a cautious approach. In India, we were always not giving priority to health. I think this is a lesson for us that we should prioritize health on our first basis. And COVID has also taught us lessons of hygienity, lessons of social distancing, and lessons of just maintaining our health by improving our immunity also.
Okay, doctor, let me come straight to the point. Is it safe to reopen the schools?
I will ask you a question. How many days can you manage your kids at home? There are our future generation. So I think we should go on, but it should be in a very cautious, programmed, phased approach. Like everybody is talking about it. WHO is talking, CDC is talking, Government of India is talking. From 2 days, Government of Karnataka is also speaking that we should start on. In my personal opinion, and also according to the IMA guidelines, it should be in a phased manner where adult or closing to adult age group, like the high school or the college education, should start first. And seeing the ground reality, we should modify it and extend it to lower down approach from college education to high school. From high school, we can come back to middle school and primary and pre-primary. And by that, even the institutes can get an experience on what to do on daily basis, and how to maintain the SOPs given by Government of India or state governments also. And it can also be a different protocol, like how IMA has told that alternate day schooling or half attendance, or even the timings of the school can be managed, like a set of classes can come between 7 and 11, and the second set can come between 2 and 4, something like that.
So, are you saying that it's better to start the earlier grade classes, like say grade 8 and above, to begin with?
Yeah, definitely, because it's easier to handle them, and also they know all the reasons. I mean, they're more mature to know what is social distancing, what information should be given to school, all that. So it should be a phased manner where we start from higher education and bring back down, and also some few points like alternate day schooling and few things like social. When you say social distancing, some concepts which are followed by schools like prayer gatherings or cultural activity or sports activity maybe have to be cancelled. And our approach, I request all the schools, our approach for 1 year should be like a healthy campus and a healthy student and a healthy staff than academics.
Mask. I think everybody is asking, what kind of mask should I be wearing? Should I be wearing the mask? Should the kid be wearing the mask throughout the day? Does it cause breathing problems? I'm sure there are a lot of WhatsApp going around saying it causes hypoxia, be careful, etc. Can you talk a little bit about the mask, doctor?
Definitely, for us healthcare workers, where we come in direct contact with positive patients, we definitely require an N95 mask. But for children, we are very careful and very conscious. A 3-ply mask should be enough. But there are many recent studies saying that it can cause hypoxia. I also have few studies. So I would suggest that any mask should not be worn during a physical exercise or during a sports activity. But anyways, we are not going to have a sports activity in the next 1 year or 6 months. So I would suggest that a 3-ply simple mask, preferably homemade mask, should be fine for a child.
So, if I were to ask you, doctor, from a school management perspective, what all steps do I need to take?
Oh, very good. The strategy, that's what I'm saying. The strategy of any school management should be a healthy campus. So healthy campus meant everybody, healthy staff, healthy support staff, healthy teachers, and healthy kids, the students. According to this, I would say, before you reopen, you have to plan a lot of things, like how to disinfect your whole campus and how to instill a few things, like bring awareness first you have to bring awareness to your own staff. This is a very new problem, so your staff may not be aware. So you have to bring awareness to the staff, and also you have to bring awareness among the parents, like what information to be given to the school staff. For example, I would say sanitization of the campus and temperature measurement of everybody, including the staff and even the students. For students, I would preferably say that it should be done at the source, at the home. And awareness is very important from the school side to bring a positive attitude among the parent community, that they are doing so much for their kids and to bring about the healthy campus. And also measurement of temperature, and basically it's communication between the school and the parent community.
Doctor, what do you talk about the medical preparedness? Can you talk about a little bit about that?
Can you repeat the question?
Medical preparedness, what the school should do in terms of getting prepared for this.
Okay. Medical preparedness comes into a point when the management gets in contact with a positive kid or a parent or any primary. For example, if a kid comes and starts developing signs and symptoms at school, then what to do? So there should be a standard operating protocols then what all should be there in school, like a PPE and one particular staff who is trained in how to handle that situation, and what all information to be carried, and what all information to be given to the health authority or the local government authority, and what information to be disseminated to the rest of the parents of the class. There should be a standard operating procedures for all this.
So I think you talked about multiple things, doctor. You talked about sanitation, you talked about temperature check, you talked about awareness, you talked about medical preparedness from the infirmary, and physical distancing. I think
This makes a nice word called stamp. I think we can stamp the COVID with these things. And I think each school can have the stamp and stamp COVID before entering their gates.
that's a very nice way to put it, doctor. Doctor, I think you talked about the sanitation of the campus, and then there are lots of various things we are hearing about. So is the chemical harmful? How frequently should this be done? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Okay. Nowadays, there are many chemicals available in the market, and according to the guidelines given by Government of India and also the local government, the most cost-effective and used from a long time in all the hospitals is sodium hypochlorite, which is also cost-effective and can be used vigorously. And I suggest that it should be done at least 30 minutes before the children come in contact with.
Great.
And usually it should be done before the children enter and the next day before the children. So it should be a day-to-day activity.
Sure. I think that's perfectly fair expectation from. I think that's what the parents are looking for to ensure that the campus is safe and healthy. Doctor, we have done our best. We have done sanitation. We have done temperature check. What if one of the kids actually or its parents develops COVID?
Okay. For example, if a child has signs and symptoms of COVID, like cough and sore throat or something, or parent has traveled to any containment zone or any other country and has returned back, I would ask the parent and the child to inform the school before in hand. And also, we should have at source measurement of the parents have to take their self declaration to be given from the parent side that I have not traveled from past 14 days anywhere. And also, it is for the benefit of their own kid. So there should be a mutual cooperation between the parent and the school. And in case, for example, if a child develops any signs and symptoms and turns out to be positive, all the documents of your stamp, that is sanitization, physical distancing, and medical preparedness, your medical preparedness becomes active at that time. And all the documentation should be, and about the positive case should be given to the health authority, local health authority. And please, all the schools should have one connect to the health authority and education department also.
Yeah, I think that will be the critical thing, doctor. I think when there is a matter of panic, people are looking for whom to contact. Whether like when is there, I mean, a local authority, should it talk to the education department? I think if I were to summarize, it will be good for each of the schools to keep a list of their local contacts of the education department, health department,
Yes.
right? That will definitely help them.
In your medical preparedness SOP, that should be there that in case if there is a positive case, whom to contact with the doctor and the phone number, the Department of Health and Department of Education also. And in case if they come back and ask you for documents, you should be prepared to give them.
Doctor, so when you say documentation, can you little talk about more in terms of what I think the schools will definitely do the right things for the kids, but they're also worry about what if the government comes and or somebody comes and asks for like, what have you done? So what kind of documentation would you suggest that the school should maintain?
Documentation from day one. I mean, even prior to the opening of the schools, you have to have documentation of things you purchased, like for sanitization and physical distancing and awareness, and your medical preparedness. Your SOPs should be kept, and also videos of you sanitizing each classroom can be kept. And also your CCTV camera should show wherever the child moved. In case if you have a child positive case, The CCTV camera can record in case if the child has moved to some other class, gone to the washroom, has it gone alone. All that video will be useful for health community, health authority to say that any primary contacts are there.
I think it was very informative, Doctor. So can you just summarize what the steps needs to be taken for the schools?
Firstly, school strategy for 1 year should be a healthy campus strategy and a healthy student staff strategy. And the second thing is the STAMP, sanitization, temperature measurement, medical preparedness, physical distancing. And also there should be an awareness, which is an important part. Awareness is, right now, the local Karnataka government has come up with a consultative kind of an approach where parents and schools have a consultation on what to be done. That approach should go on for a long time. Like the parents should get the confidence that what school has been doing every day, so that the parent feels comfortable in sending the child. And there should be a transparent, cooperative approach between the parent and the school.
So are you saying, Doctor, that okay, let the schools not worry too much about attendance, etc., because kids might fall sick or teachers themselves might fall sick, and then schools may have a little tough time in kind of managing these things. So should they be a little lenient on the attendance part of it this year?
Lenient, and yeah, definitely they should be. And second thing, they should teach them about some immunity boosters, something like to improve healthy eating habits, hygiene. Such concepts should be more placed more between the teacher-student interaction. Even the students can inculcate it easily. And also, attendance should not be a matter at all for next 1 year. It should be basically to develop the mental health of the child, where children can come and meet their teacher, meet their friend for some time, even 1 or 2 hours a week. Their mental health will improve. We should also think about the overall development of a child.
Fair enough, Doctor. I think, as I mentioned earlier, we have a long list of questions, and then I have kind of summarized a few of them which have not been covered in the topic that we talked about right now. I'll quickly go over some of the questions and then open up for an interactive session. So we have one question from Ms. Gauri Kurupati from National Center for Excellence. Her question says, how do we implement various strategies to keep up the good health in schools? And how do we assess them in terms of health on a daily basis? Any precautionary measures? And then you did talk about educating the parents. Will some kind of a webinars help the parents, etc.? Can we just talk about
Definitely,
that?
there should be a continuous communication, a transparent communication between the school and the parent, so that the parent gets confidence to send their children. And secondly, the school has to emphasize on these things more for the next 1 year or so. And also, if we see the other countries like China, France, UK, they're also starting their school post few in my study, I think 30% mid-May or something, they started their school in a phased manner. So I think a phased approach, and also each school concentrating on healthy campus, and awareness between the school and the parent, and the communication between the parent and the school also becomes very important.
I think fair enough, Doctor. In fact, one thing that came up in the media significantly was France opened the schools and there were 70 cases of COVID. And then when I did a research, actually it says the 40,000 schools opened up in France, and out of 40,000 schools, and imagine like 1,000 kids per school or even 500 kids per school, 70 of them fell sick or had COVID, and not because they went to school, but it was much earlier, right? I think that actually should give us a confidence that
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even the China and UK have already started schools. In fact, they've already started their pre-primary schools.
Oh, really? I think that was one question that a lot of our audience said. I mean, is it okay for the young kids like pre-primary, etc., to start off? I think you are saying that, okay, it is fine. I mean, let's do a staggered way and make sure that all schools, all classes can open in a staggered way.
Yeah, I'm not saying right away we'll start preschool, but we will start with higher education and come back slowly. It's like trickling down.
Sure. We have one more question from Ms. Shweta Tirukumaran from SCAD World School. She says, Doctor, how do I maintain social distancing in a classroom? I mean, like the kids are always, I mean, fighting, enjoying themselves in a class. How do you think that they should be doing a social distancing in the classroom?
I think in the higher classes, it should not be a problem. If you take an alternate classes or stagger their timings, say the first half come in from morning 7 to 11 and the second half come from 12 to 2, and reduce the number of class duration. Like you don't have this computer education, you don't have this physical education, you don't have sports activity, and all that. If you reorganize your schedule, weekly schedule, and stagger it only to your academics part, and also alternate basis or half attendance one day and half attendance second day. Uh, and now the guidelines has told that each particular section only this many on basis of the square foot and how many students should sit per desk and bench. All that has been slowly coming up. IMA is also giving the guidelines. I'm a part of it. So we will slowly give you that.
Sure. We have one question from Mr. Rakesh Bhatia from Mount Litteras Z School, Kasganj. So what is the right way to implement this standard operating protocols and when the schools open? So, I mean, can you talk about the operating protocols, what they should be doing? Is there any document that's already available? Can you think about, Doctor?
Right now, standard operating protocols for schools are not available, but they are in the process of, it's like it's in the making of it. But I would say that it should be a staggered approach, and standard operating protocol at each phase should what standard operating protocol for principal, for class teacher, for support staff, for transportation should be made. And it should be customized to each school because each school caters to different kinds of module, ICSE, CBSE, state boards, and their timings are different and all that. But definitely it should be on par with whatever the central government and state governments give.
Next question is an interesting one. Ms. Gurmeet Kaur from Sunbeam English School asks, how to teach students and support staff self-discipline about following the guidelines for COVID-19?
A teacher is asking her doctor how to give discipline to students. Very interesting question. I think most of the children in this 3 months, they have learned that self-discipline, like what is COVID and what to be done. And at home also, they would have emphasized it. At school, you have to just maintain these 5 things: social distancing, awareness, and hand washing, repeated hand washing, and decrease the hours of school. Stay at a particular place. Like stay in the school should be reduced to 2-3 hours initially. And also for the support staff, also there should be a self-declaration that she has not traveled or she or he is not from any containment zone. And also the same protocol should be followed for the staff and the support staff also.
This is the next interesting question from Ms. Sri Rajalakshmi from DPS Visakhapatnam. She says, we are talking a lot about student safety. Yeah, fine. What about safety measures for the institutions in place for teachers and for their psychological and physical well-being? I think this is something very interesting question, I would say.
Yes. Firstly, the school management and the teacher have to reschedule their programming, the whole programming, that how are they going to receive the students and at what timings and how to do it. And also the school has to emphasize on teacher safety, and also the same protocols for the teacher to be maintained. Like how careful you are with the child, the same carefulness should be there for the teacher also.
And I think
the burden of the teacher should also be reduced by having SOPs for her, so that she knows what to do at what time.
Yeah. And I think this online teaching has been a totally new phenomenon for the teachers, and they are going through their own difficulty in getting adjusted to this. I think, as you said, if there is staggered hours and not too much of focus on academics, at least for the first few months, that will actually reduce their stress on the teachers, and they will be able to help the students better, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. As doctors, we found it very difficult to come for teleconsultation. And even after teleconsultation, patient wants to visit us. They want to have a personal connect with the doctor. Even the student expects the personal connect with her friends and also the teacher. And also teacher finds it very comfortable to physically teach the child.
Very true, Doctor. That's a very informative thought. We have one question from Mr. Mohsin from International School, Sheikpet. Again, it's more of mental health. He's asking from the children's perspective. What are the consequences of the COVID-19 for children's mental health and social development of young children?
That is the reason I think all the governments and even Government of India is planning to reopen the schools. Like already they are in a kind of a closed, caged kind of environment at home. And also now that we have very cautionary approach and government is giving strict guidelines to be followed. So I think with this approach and with all this stamp attitude, we should bring back the child to their normalcy, and that will improve their mental health also. At least even 2-3 hours per week or alternate days coming to school and having that environment definitely matters a lot for overall development of a child.
And that was very informative, Doctor. Whoever has a question, please give me a thumbs up in the reaction, and then yeah, you can unmute yourself. We have Miss Anjana Devi. Go ahead, ma'am.
Good morning, good afternoon, Mr. Srina. This question, ma'am, is that, we are facing major problem with the pre-primary section, where the parents are saying that they would rather not send the child to the school this session and keep it hold for another session, keeping it safe, and they're requesting that, you carry on with online studies and promote them accordingly, and the students would like to continue in the next session. And this is a concern coming mainly from the grandparents, that they would not like their pre-primary children to continue with schooling in this session. So how do you tackle the grandparents here? Because they come up with the excuse that, a 3-year-old child can wait for another year to start the schooling, or for a 4-year child, it is not important to go to a school regularly, etc., etc. So how do you tackle the parents with such mindset?
Okay.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you. It was a beautiful question because I have a 4-year-old and I have a 2-year-old whom I'm yet to join to school. So it's a nice question. Firstly is start off with 1 day per week. And if you have like 20 children in a class, ask about 3 to 4 children per week, per day. Like a Monday, 1 to 4, Tuesday, 4 to 6. I mean, the roll numbers I'm speaking.
Correct. So, I understand.
So each teacher can concentrate on 2 or 3, maximum 5 children, and divide your room into 4 corners and give individual activity with them. And after an activity, please, mostly I think preschool is usually activity-based teaching. So after an activity, sanitize those equipments with simple sanitization techniques. And maybe initial few days, you may have to take a video of the child actually enjoying the environment of the school. And also you can take a video of how safe is the school. Like for example, what sanitization process you've done on that day. And make a group for all Monday students, all Tuesday students, and all Wednesday students. And I think the teacher will be very happy having only 5 children per class.
Correct. But I think the initial challenge would be to get even those 5 students to school, for the parents to be willing to send those 5 students to school. But yes, this can be assured that the number would be very, very small, with the 1:1 attention to each one of them.
Yeah, the 1:1 attention, I think parents will be very happy with. And your way of handling, I mean, the sanitization things you're doing at your school, that video should be, I mean, communication should go on a day-to-day basis to those people who are attending that day's school.
Okay.
And I think initially first few days it will be a hurdle, but I'm definitely sure that 3 or 4 kids, they'll be very happy to send them, at least on a weekly basis. And seeing the child's happiness back from the school, I think they'll be inspired to send more.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Who wants to go next? Anybody else wants to ask a question? You can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask a question.
Good afternoon, Doctor.
Good afternoon.
This is Kishore from Mahavidyalaya, Bangalore.
Okay.
Now we are talking about online classes from first standard or from LKG onwards. Now I wanted to know how it affects the child's growth, both mentally, physically, or brain.
I think already my friends in NIMANS have already released and also recommended to Government of Karnataka that online classes to primary and pre-primary should not be done. And it's affecting their mental health a lot. And also I think our minister came up with the guidelines that online classes should not be done for pre-primary and primary. NIMANS has given a clear study. No, NIMANS has given a clear study. Please go search for the article, or I'll send it post the webinar. It's given a clear study and how it affects the mental development of the child.
But parents are they're not ready to send their wards to schools, but they're demanding us to have the online classes for them.
Yeah, what you can do initially is have an online class, and as I told earlier to Ms. Anjana also, that you can start a weekly once class.
Okay.
And you can say that send the children for weekly once a particular activity which cannot be done at home. I think slowly you have to gain the confidence of the parent, and you have to re-emphasize them that your strategy or your goal of the year is not academic or fees. It's the interaction between the student and teacher and the development of the child for the next year, because you have to receive the child even the next year.
Yes, of course. Thank you, doctor.
Yeah. Any other question? Go ahead. You can unmute yourself and ask a question. While we wait for folks to ask a question, I think one thought I had and wanted to comment on, Doctor, is we talk a lot about screen time, right? And then say, I think NIMANS talks about maximum 1 hour of screen time, not more than 30 minutes. And then this whole online teaching has actually completely turned it upside down. And you're saying, okay, now they have to sit in front of the screen for next 4 hours. So while we are trying to push for less screen
No. The
time.
problem right now is we are only concentrating on COVID. The exposure to screen will have its effect later on. So the parents don't know the effect right now. So the parents will again have one more spark of panic when that effect comes back. Right now, the attitude, I mean, as a parent also, not as a doctor, as a parent also, if the child is occupied in the phone, I can do my work.
True. I think this is something that every parent, like suppose you have like both husband and wife working, and
Working
they have
parents.
they are like having a tough time working from home with all of these things. If the kid is actually busy with a TV or a mobile or a tab, they are more than happy to let it go. And I think as you said, like that's the next problem that will coming up once the home COVID goes away.
Parents are happy that this time the child is not seeing whatever it wants. It's seeing whatever the teacher is teaching. So that way they feel it is safe.
Sure. Anybody else has any question? You can unmute yourself and ask a question.
And doctor, I have one more question. This is again Kishore from Mahatma Vidyalaya.
Okay.
Just if child gets the COVID-19, what are its effects after getting cured? Will it affect its mental growth as well as the physical growth?
As of now, we have no studies saying that what is the after effect of COVID positive kids. Like recently, about 100 mothers who delivered, who were positive pregnant mothers who delivered, 96 of them are negative babies. So even if the mother was positive, the baby was negative. the same way, we have to see what is its mental effect, because if you see corona as such, it's any respiratory viral infection. So how many times do you think a child will get flu in its lifetime? Like the viral flu is so common, but except of school absenteeism, except that there is no long-term effect on the child. The same way, if the COVID, if the child is very, for example, the child is very immune, I meant the child is very healthy, doesn't have any chronological or immunosuppressive or any other disorder, very healthy. Usually, out of all the cases I have seen, one or two only had severe consequences. Rest all had normal flu-like signs and symptoms and recovered very fast. We are also having a long-term study on seeing what are the other effects on the children, but there's no published data on it as of now.
Thank you, doctor.
Yeah. Next question, anybody? So one question I had, Doctor, I mean, I think I'm just trying to summarize some of the questions that I got in. So you talked about that physical activity, the assemblies should be kind of avoided, or like, I mean, but what about food in the school? I think a lot of schools provide food in the school, or they typically have some kind of a catered food from some organization, etc. So what do you suggest them, those schools, those parents, and those kids?
First of all, if you are staggering the time, the lunch break should not be included in it, because the lunch break is a free time for children. So children are so used to not follow rules and regulation during a lunch break. So I would preferably say your stay should be only 2 to 3 hours, and a snack break, and the snack should be like a simple snack, and the child gets it from home. But in case if you are a residential school and it's your protocol, please follow all the protocols which has been given to these hotels. Already Government of India and these big protocols, how to follow, how to cook, how to sanitize, and how to even deliver the food to the customer. The same thing can be utilized for the school also, if you have a kitchen in your school or something. And preferably give more importance to nutritious food. And also have a document of it. Till now, I think you never had a document of it. From now on, you should have a document of it. Like who cooked on that day, and post cooking, how many people were served in this sitting, and how those vessels were washed. Everything matters now.
Very nice. So one, somebody has a question, go ahead. Hello, anybody has a question? So doctor, one question I also, I mean, as a parent, I'm bringing it up here is like, how do we educate our kids and the parents to boost immunity? I think like there is a lot of talk about, okay, if you are good immunity, then you will not get COVID. So can I get an injection that will give me immunity, or some kind of a quick fix? Can you talk about nutrition and immunity in that perspective? I mean,
There's no quick fix. If the quick fix was there, I think China would have solved the issue on this in December only. But I would definitely say educate the, I mean, most of the children, all of the parents want to educate them. Please reduce their junk and all that unnecessary food items. And please go ahead with homemade nutritious food. And also Ayush department has given many guidelines on what medicines to be taken for even adults and children also. It's available. I can share it also. A few of the Chawanprash and some few immunoboosters have been given, which many clinical trials have already proven that it is effective and doesn't have any harmful effect to the children. And it's also been given by Government of India. So I think we can follow that.
very nice, doctor. I think that is something that will be very useful for the parents. And then I think that similarly, if after this whole COVID thing is also done, definitely schools can incorporate some of those aspects into their school food that they actually provide and help them
Yes.
boost the immunity. I would like to see if there is any more questions, or we can actually close the webinar. We're almost 50 minutes into the thing. I know it's like a peak school season that admissions are happening. There are a lot of questions about how to manage the school reopening. But I would like to allow if any more questions coming up from the audience. Any last questions?
I would love to add a point. Like I have helped many industries also to reopen, and initially the industries also had this fear that employees not being so confident to come and work. Few industries did few good communication things, like daily what they used to do. They used to send a 1-minute video to the parents that today we have done all this safety measures to be taken. We have done sanitization or we have done physical distancing. All this protocols has been followed, and your child was here. The same thing was followed in the factories in the manufacturing sector. I have helped them also. I think the same a transparent and a cooperative communication between the school and the parent community should solve this problem.
Sure. I got two questions on the chat, Doctor. I'll just quickly ask that question. So we have Ms. Shuvata Tirukumaran asking, how about residential schools? Anything do you see what they should be following in residential schools?
Residential schools should follow all the norms that government has given for the PGs. Okay, PGs, they have already given guidelines that each room should only one inmate of the room should be there. The same thing should be followed even for the residential schools, preferably for the higher education. For the primary and the middle school, it might be a little difficult that one child in one room. But the same protocol has to be followed there also. Sanitization, maybe the surface area is more like you have a residential complex and the teaching complex. So maybe you have to do both the ways, both there and here. And the techniques which we are using for their laundry, their activity in the residential complex have to be monitored, and they should not be unmonitored activity, such that you know where are the children going and what are they doing.
Sure. There was one question. I think we talked a lot about online and the screen time, etc. So I think we are having one question that says, what would be the ideal duration of an online class for primary class people, kids? How many hours?
Primary class, is it?
Yeah. How many hours is okay online?
How many hours is okay? According to the medical background, what I say is the attention span of a primary student or pre-primary student should be in minutes. So if you can plan a session in minutes, please go ahead. But otherwise, for higher education, the attention span is about 30 to 40 minutes. I think a session should end by then, between 30 to 40 minutes. I think most of the pedagogy materials which they follow also are on the same principles. The teaching principles also the same, the attention span of the child. So attention span of a younger child is in minutes.
Sure. And one question from Ms. Deepika Bal says, I mean, obviously, I think earlier they had like 40 to 45 minutes for each class period in school. Do you think that it should be changed? What is the ideal time? I mean, for online class or
offline? Online class, depending upon, for the pre-primary, it should be a recorded session of 2-3 minutes or more, 4 minutes, where the parent can play anytime the child wants. It should not be a live session. Obviously, the child cannot sit and concentrate. And for higher education, I think each session, a topic should be broken into small pieces, and each session should be lasting about 20 to 30, maximum 40 minutes.
Okay. And again, Ms. Deepika asks, how many hours a day school is okay? I mean, I think you talked about maybe 4 hours a day. Once the schools reopen, if you were to stagger it, how many hours is good time?
You mean the total duration of the student staying in the school?
Yes, per day.
Initially, if I go from a higher education, initially it should be about 1 to 1.5 hours, like the important sessions to be taken, and slowly you can increase the sessions, seeing your ground experiences.
Okay. Sure.
Like 9 to 11 o'clock should be ideal. And the next session between 2 to 4 or 2 to 3 or 3:30 or something like that. And you can divide the students and ask them to come.
I think that's fair. I think we are almost towards the end of the session. I hope the session was good and informative for all of you. And in order to help the school management reopen the schools, in fact, we are, Healthy Kid is launching a solution called Healthy Campus, which is having all the details about the protocols to be followed, the sanitization, what kind of planning needs to be done, what kind of documentation is useful for you, and also a certification by epidemiologists in case you want to make sure that the school is properly sanitized and ready for COVID preparedness. So, I mean, we shall send the details of the same in an email, and please send back feedback for the session. And it was really nice interacting with the audience here. And I hope the doctor also enjoyed, as a doctor and as a mother, talking to the school management of what they think and how we can actually help in making this healthy nation for years to come.
Very thankful for teachers because they're actually taking care of the future generation. And before attending this session, I was thinking that they are actually scared to come back. But now I feel happy that they're confident to come back and reopen their schools. I think we'll help you out.
Sure. Thanks a lot, folks. And then feel free to provide some inputs. I think I'm getting some good feedback on the chat here. It'd be great if you can drop a feedback mail that will help us in making this. Maybe you can do more webinars. I think one of the input was, can we do sessions for parents too? And then that definitely is something that we will do it. We can have either a recorded session or an interactive session for the parents also, to help them reassure that the campus is safe for the kids to come. Thanks a lot, and let's look for an academic year which is going to be fun for the kids too. Thank you.
And safe too.